There we go.
All right. So welcome again. This is a very special event that is hosted by Pitch Global as well as SKC. We are your co-hosts. Casey, thank you for the invitation. My name is Sharon Sim, and my colleagues Morgan Ramirez and Tristy Bowman are also on the call. They're helping me play a little bit of a traffic cop. So just before we start, also Morgan has a couple of little housekeeping items.
So hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. For our little bit of housekeeping, all participants will be off camera and muted during presentations just to ensure the smooth running of the event. However, feel free to put any questions in the chat for our guests, and thank you again so much.
Wonderful. Excellent. And as you know, a lot of you, Pitch Global has been around for several years. Casey Wisdom is the co-founder. He had really uncovered a really great niche for startups who are seeking funding, but has really high entry barriers to entries to the point where they have to pay thousands of dollars to have access to investors. Casey had founded a platform where almost giving access to investors in a way that has not been done before. And today is an example of that. You hear from veteran VCs and CVCs who will share their wisdom with you for the first part of the event. And then the later part of this event, we will do a little bit of a Shark Tank type pitching from the startup founders. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Casey, who is the founder of Pitch Global.
Great. Thank you, Sharon. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever all the participants are here from. I'm Kaustav Chaudhuri. You can call me Casey. And it is my privilege to be introduced by Sharon Sim, who's a PR tech serial entrepreneur, sold her previous PR company to one of the largest tech PR companies. And in our events in LA, she has brought senior directors of TechCrunch, USA Today, all these people to our events. So she is very, very well connected in tech media. So we Pitch Global and our predecessor companies, we are running investor events and educational events for almost a decade. And we are backed by US government agencies to mentor companies with job creating potential in Northern California. So our core value is that we believe in collaboration, and we have figured out ways to make entrepreneurs collaborate with each other. And today we've segued to working with corporate venture capital arms of large corporations during the pandemic. And now we are leading US government's charge in Northern California to really build the CVC ecosystem. So today we have a very action-packed agenda where we are going to start with the interview of CVC leader from Micron Tech. Interview will be made by Jerry Baranano, entrepreneur in residence of Pitch Global, who previously founded and ran US government agency in Northern California. Then we have a masterclass on how to prepare for due diligence by Andrew Maywah, co-founder of TDK Ventures. And then we will have 7 founders present to very distinguished panel of judges, mostly CVCs, and a couple of very investors representing brand name companies. But before we start today, since we are all about entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs, we will get a brief 2-minute State of the Union from one of our long-term entrepreneurs, who's also my dear friend for over 10 years, Erik Eklund of Telemetrak, who's going to briefly share his fundraising experiences. He is someone who's raised not only equity, but also non-dilutive funding through our US government networks and agencies. So Erik, my friend, please give me the State of the Union.
Thank you, Casey. I just need about 2 minutes, I think. I'll give go through the pitch in a few minutes, 10 o'clock or something like that. But in brief, we have a kinetic energy powered tracking device, which allows us to track things that don't have any electric power. like containers, the big steel boxes. Now, the Defense Department has about 300,000 containers, and as a result, the U.S. Defense Department has provided a great deal of our funding so far. We've raised over $1 million, $1.25 million from the Defense Department through R&D contracts. And then on the private side, we've raised $825,000 in dilutive funding through angels. And I'm pleased to note that over half of the angels, or the money that's coming from angels, over half of that has come in from people associated with KC's network, with the Pitch Global network. So Pitch Global has actually really moved the needle for us in terms of fundraising on the private side. On the public side, the same is true. There's a guy named Chuck Eason and Jerry, who's also on this call. These guys really understand how to get things moving with the government, which is a large, slow-moving organization, but it has a great deal of money, and over half of our funding to date has come from the government. On the private side, as I said, it's all been done through angels, including some fairly heavy hitters. One used to be CEO of Sun Microsystems, for example, and then there was an incubator involved as well. Another angel is he runs an $800 million private equity fund in New York City. He's invested through that fund. It's really an angel investment because we didn't go through their full process. They're not used to cutting checks that small. They're used to cutting $100 million checks, not $100,000 checks. On the Defense Department side, everything's been done through an organization which is part of the Air Force called AFWorks. They're part of Air Force Research Labs. And for example, the U.S. Air Force, the Defense Department has an $800 billion a year budget. The Air Force alone has an R&D budget of $35 billion. And they're required to spend part of that with Small Business Concerns, which is a company with less than 500 people. And this, believe me, we are less than 500 people at this stage. We're about 7. So we easily meet that requirement. But because
Erik,
they're required.
now we have
Yep.
get on to the main course, but we are very impressed with your numbers. And we will please stay and we will see the rest of it during your presentation.
Thank you. Yeah, if anybody has questions about AFWorks, just call me up. You'll see my number later. I'll post that.
Okay.
Thank you, Casey. I'll stop talking now.
Okay. Thank you, Erik. So now we are so excited to introduce 2 leaders. It's like a chat between 2 leaders. And we have a CVC leader from Micron Tech, Gayatri Radhakrishnan, and we love to collect people who are not only smart but also helpful. And I see on LinkedIn she's always making introductions for others. So we are really excited to welcome her back into the Pitch Global community. This is the first time. She and all other people and investors have been at Pitch Global before. So it's my privilege to introduce Gayatri Radhakrishnan, and she will be interviewed by our entrepreneur in residence, Jerry Baranano. Briefly about Jerry. Jerry was involved with some very large exits in the 90s, billion-dollar exits when he was early employees. And then he started US government program, raised money from state of California, NorCal SBDC, and he chose Pitch Global to become a satellite a few years ago, and which changed our lives. So he's been an amazing mentor. During the pandemic, he retired and moved to Tennessee, and he's also helping us deepen our relationship with CVCs because he is tremendously connected in the Silicon Valley ecosystem, both dilutive and non-dilutive. So Jerry, I hand over the floor to you, and Gayatri, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Casey, and welcome, Gayatri. I'll call you G if that's okay. I understand that's the norm.
Absolutely.
So, and also thanks, Erik, for the shout out. So let me just start. If you can just give us a minute or two on your background, and then also a little bit about the fund that you're working with from Micron. What's the check size? What are they? Tech focus. What stage do you lead? And are there any geographic companies? Anything else you want to throw in there?
Absolutely. Thanks again to the Pitch Global community and SKC for having me today. Quickly about my background, I have a technical educational background. I have a master's in EE, but most of my work experience has been a crossover between technology and business skills. So at some point I decided that I wanted to do an MBA. So about more than a decade ago, I did my MBA at INSEAD near Paris as well. Specific to Micron Ventures. So in Micron Ventures is the corporate venture arm of Micron Technology. We've been doing corporate sort of strategic investing for a long time. But I would say in late 2018, we announced a $100 million AI fund. And we've been actively investing in startups that are applying AI in verticals like manufacturing, automotive or mobility, healthcare, what we call better planet, so ag tech and sustainability, and also platform technologies that enable the adoption of AI and machine learning. And this could be, chip startups, AI accelerator startups, MLOps, both software systems and hardware, basically from a platform standpoint. We typically Series A and Series B, but we have done the occasional pre-Series A, we've done the occasional C as well. In Fund 1, we predominantly followed. We did not lead any rounds, but our check sizes have ranged anywhere from $1 million to 10, but our sweet spot, I would say, is in the 2 to 5 million kind of range. And we do set aside money for reserves for follow-on investing as well. We are fully deployed from Fund 1. We still have reserves for follow-on investing. Last year, we got approved for Fund 2. Announcement will be coming in a couple of weeks, so I won't go there. But we've been actively deploying capital from our Fund 2 already. We have made 6 investments to date already from Fund 2. It'll be slightly more broader in terms of focus. It'll deep tech oriented. Jerry, you asked me about geography. So we actually invest in US, Europe, and Israel as our initial target markets. But at the end of the day, if there's a good founder, good technology that kind of meets our focus areas, we may be a little more flexible on that one. But for starters, this is the kind of broad geo that we are focused on.
Brilliant. That was a great answer. Thank you. So let me just help everybody here and me understand a little bit better about your role within Micron Ventures, within Micron Corporation, in terms of, are you trying to search for specific solutions that Micron needs a solution to, their product or their product line, or where they're planning to take the company? Are you sort of the funnel for innovation? Are you also lead gen for M&A within the corporation?
Great question. So we are a financial first focused investor. So you can sense from some of the verticals like healthcare and ag tech. We do look for synergies where possible. For instance, if there is a startup that's working on sustainability that can be applied towards semiconductor manufacturing or processes, we would definitely leverage that. We look at companies that could be the next generation leaders, right? For the new, whatever the market evolves to be. Then every wave of technology has, a few companies that kind of rise to the top. We are kind of looking for those winners because think of us as a lighthouse for innovation. We shine the light to see what's coming ahead. As a company, every executive and every employee is really focused on building our products, taking it to the market, focused on our customer. But think of our group as someone who shines the light on, hey, what's happening outside our core in adjacent areas, and maybe not even adjacent areas, because today's next metaverse company may be the Facebook or Google of the future that impacts our business, right? So understanding what's happening in the broader ecosystem allows us to also gives us visibility into what's going on. And fundamentally, our mission is around transforming information for benefiting everybody. So we also try to align, that's where the Better Planet theme and healthcare themes come. We think that technology can have a big impact on food production, on our healthcare systems. How can we as a venture team enable that next generation of technology to support, broader community that we live in?
Okay, so that's very interesting because most CVCs are really very focused on helping their corporations, their corporate masters to achieve the next, a breakthrough in their product or in their market focus, or maybe find a new market. But you were saying that it's mostly financial first is the focus. So do you then, are you called into product meetings or big strategy meetings within Micron? Or is that like, well, you can come if you want, but really you got to focus on making us some money?
So absolutely we do, because as I said, if you think of us as the kind of lighthouse for innovation, right? And from a structure standpoint as well, we report to the chief strategy officer.
Okay.
So we do, I mean, there are technologies that we've become customers of, right? So we invested in a manufacturing technology company and we leverage that technology in-house today. So we are customers. For some of our other partners or other portfolio companies that have a hardware angle, so they may be looking for, especially during COVID, the supply chain crisis, they have a hard time finding NAND supply, then we connect them to help them sort that through. We provide our hardware expertise to these companies. So, and then we also look at longer term strategic value, right? We could look at what's happening in the semiconductor manufacturing space and we could invest there. So it is a broader mandate, but the idea is we are looking to, at a minimum, not just return them, make them minimum 1x, but multiply that to justify our existence as well. So.
Okay, so you talked a little bit about helping, the startups that you invest in with their manufacturing, and I assume that it's broader than that whatever other talents or research areas you may have, you would be able to open that up to some of the companies you invest in. Do you do JDAs or do you do NREs?
Again,
Joint
those are
development or non-recurring engineering, just for, I
Right,
hate using
yeah.
acronyms and then people are saying, I don't know what that is.
So we typically are, as I said, because we're financial first, it's all about speed, especially for companies that are interesting, where there's a lot of demand. If we layer, a joint development agreement or NRE requirements that ties into our investment, that kind of slows the process down. So we typically do the investment with the financial lens and say, okay, standalone, does it make sense? And then we'll facilitate the introductions with our business units where it makes sense to do any JDA, and we may guide them in the process, but we try to kind of separate the two as much as possible, and try to be as supportive to the startup as we can.
Okay, so I'm a big believer that stories are much more memorable than bullet points on a PowerPoint pitch, which I've seen too many of. So give us a story of how you met a company, right? A startup. I'm talking about a startup and then what was the decision-making process that led you to say, yes, we're going to invest in this startup? And you might also give an example where you said, no, we're not going to invest for these reasons. So help us understand that internal decision-making process that you go through, so that the companies that want to approach you will say, yeah, I'm not quite ready for that, or I'm not the right kind of company that they want to invest in.
Got it. So I'll give you two stories and
Perfect.
I'll make it brief. One is to show how we can work closely with a potential portfolio company. So our business unit came to us. This is our smart manufacturing team, and this is actually out as a blog post. So I'll make it really simple. They came to us right after COVID happened and said, we want to make sure that there's no machine downtime, and because we cannot have people fly into our factories anymore. So we have been looking for solutions in this space. Here's our problem statement. Here are the few companies that are very well established that we are talking to. How can you as the venture team looking at innovation in the broader market kind of help us, right? So we did a thorough market scan based on their sort of requirements. We narrowed down the list and shared 3 companies with them. 2 of them got selected to do a POC. They did the POC. One of them actually got chosen.
Proof of concept.
So this was not even, we didn't even bring investment into the discussion, right? As a way of explaining kind of deal flow. At that time, the company didn't really have an AI sort of roadmap, and the first fund was an AI fund. So we basically sort of watched it. This was more of a supporting the business unit kind of activity. But as it developed and as the roadmap evolved, they realized that they will be leveraging AI in their sort of product. And so they came back to us and said, hey, we are going to be leveraging AI in our roadmap, and Micron's a customer. Would you be interested? Right. At that time, we again looked at it from a financial sense. We talked to our internal customers, right? The business unit that is actually deploying it. We talked to several of the company's other customers, and we liked it so much that we ended up leading their Series A in this particular case. So now here's an example of something that's very close to our business unit. So I'll give you one other story that's not, we invested in a company called Iterative.
Can I just ask a quick question as a follow-on to that first story?
Absolutely.
So what was the decision-making process internal? Was it just within your group? Did it go beyond to either the operating unit or to the strategic officer that you report into? How is that done?
So the decision-making process is actually very straightforward for us. So once we as the investment principals within the company decide that, and we do our full diligence on them, right? Everything that a typical investor would do, market, customer diligence, team diligence, technology diligence, and all of that. Once we develop a conviction, we then take it to our investment committee. And our investment committee is essentially a big chunk of the C-suite. So we have about 5 of them. And we have streamlined the process whereby certain smaller check sizes, we can do an email approval. So we would send out the investment memo. We talk about why we believe that this is a good fit or a good investment for Micron. And then they approve, or if they have questions, they ask us. If the check size is larger, then we try to get an in-person meeting so we can answer, because it's a larger amount. There'll be more questions. We want to be able to answer those questions real time, and then we move the ball forward that way. So the process itself is pretty streamlined on our side. I hope.
Yeah, I understand that you can move very quickly, so that's great.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll quickly give you an example of a healthcare company that we invested in. No real strong ties per se, but we saw that potential. There's a company called Iterative Scopes. They focus on AI in the gastroenterology space. So they focus on early detection of colorectal cancer, and they also have applicability for inflammatory bowel disease, right? So you go, okay, scratch your head. What does Micron have to do with this? Not really, but the thing is, we can think about it as the way they do it is computer vision. Their software resides in a hardware box that would sit in where the colonoscopy is done, and it helps the physician identify polyps and so on. There was a hardware angle that we could help them with. But at the same time, we saw the potential of a technology like this, and we actually invested in them. This was the exception of a pre-series A startup that we invested in, because we thought that this could be groundbreaking if it happened. Again, we moved super fast just because of that reason, even made the exception to go in a little earlier than our sweet spot of Series A in that particular case. So
okay,
two kind of distinct.
2 successes. Now give us a quick failure where you said, not for us.
So I'd say, again, I'll use the healthcare space as
Sure.
One of the companies actually introduced by, my friend TDK Ventures. We really fell in love with the company, but this was really early in the process. Did a lot of diligence. We unfortunately decided to pass, and the reason was this. They had a medical device that required FDA approval. And for us as a semiconductor company, and my investment committee is not any kind of healthcare expertise, it was very quickly apparent that explaining to them the nuances of a FDA regulatory process and trying to get them over when people hear FDA, unless you're in the field and you know kind of the steps required, you kind of think of that as oh my God, that seems like a big risk, right? So it seemed like a big hurdle for us to communicate that in a investment to our investment committee. So basically we made that was a good learning experience as well. Unfortunately, for the founders, we felt like we'd done a lot of diligence. We still like the company a lot, but it was time spent on both sides, right? But the lesson learned from that is from then on, we basically said, if a company in the healthcare space that has to get to revenue only with the FDA approval, then we kind of wait till they get the approval. Then it's one thing eliminated. We know that we'll pay a premium because of that, but we are willing to wait. But if any healthcare company has a kind of two-pronged approach, one product requires FDA, but they have another approach where there is no FDA requirement, then we have no problem looking at companies like that.
Does that include 510K?
That was a 510K.
Is that considered FDA approval, or?
Yes.
It is. Okay.
It's done by the FDA regulatory body. So yes, for us, it would be considered FDA approval process. That is the problem that we found out. You're like, oh, it's 510K, it shouldn't be hard, but just explaining all of that, because we realized that they didn't have the bandwidth to, and we said, okay, probably not the best use of the founder's time as well. So we said, great.
And that was very interesting. I mean, Tech Futures Group, we took the approach that, if it's a small molecule, you gotta, all the patients and all the rest of it. We said, we just not the right people to help you. We only provided mentorship. We weren't an investment fund. But for 510K, we found out that, we could help, because it wasn't, a 4-year process. It was pretty truncated, and, so we could sort of point them in the right direction and that kind of thing. But for the full thing, we just said
I think, frankly, we're also new to healthcare. So even in Fund 2, we probably wouldn't lead a healthcare deal, right? So I think as we get more comfort in the space and expertise in the space, that may change. But we have to pick our battles. So
clearly, no, that's exactly right. I mean, you have to know when to say no. You really do, because otherwise you're just chasing too much stuff. Okay, I think we're sort of toward the end. So let me just ask you, what can Pitch Global do to help you, Micron, and you, perhaps you personally? This could be a way for some venture capitalists or CVC people, not the organization, to shine as well. So maybe there's some of that as well. So let us know what we can do, and also if you have sort of a piece of advice you'd like to leave to the folks who are going to be pitching today, would be real helpful.
Absolutely. On the first one, we are absolutely looking for founders who are looking to change the world with technology. So if you're out there, we're open to talking to you. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't realize that we exist. So anything that Pitch Global can do to help the people know that, or founders know that Micron Ventures is an entity that exists, that's awesome. I always think of venture capital as a service business, right? Your first customer is your portfolio companies, and then your second customer is your people who invest money in your fund. You need to satisfy both, but if you don't satisfy your portfolio companies, you're not going to get more referrals. So at the end of the day, I believe that my first priority is to support the startups that I work with. In terms of sort of, I wouldn't call it word of wisdom, but just a thought. When you go to any kind of speaking engagement, they always tell you, who's your audience, who are you talking to, right? I would always tell every founder to think about that. Think about who you're pitching, right? You cannot have the same pitch to your customer for the investor. It's two different things, right? So most founders, the great thing is they're technologists. They're very passionate about what they do and the technology that they bring to the broader market. But at the end of the day, VCs are there to, satisfy a specific function in the startup ecosystem. That is to provide capital to startups, but also return that capital multifold to their LPs. So that is their business. So be aware of that and get them excited about why you think your opportunity could be that big opportunity that's not only going to make you rich, but going to make them, the venture capitalists and their LPs rich as well, right? At the end of end of the day, that's kind of what they're looking for.
Right.
That is
I mean,
their
that's-
business model.
That's great advice, because even for the CVCs, I think, most CVCs do want to fill a technical hole or
Right.
an innovation hole they may have. Yours is a little different because it's finance first. But I think trying to put yourself in the other person's shoes, which I think is what you're saying,
Right.
is really, it's a great thing. I was in sales for many years, and it's something I learned very early. And over time, it becomes natural.
That's
But
right.
so, Casey, I don't know where we are in time. It's 11:30.
I think it's
I
perfect.
mean, I
We
don't
have
know what
done
time it is there, 9:30, I guess. I'm sorry, I'm in Chicago today, so Mountain Time.
No, we have done perfectly in terms of time. So thank you, very much, Jerry, for interviewing G. And G, please stay, see our presentations. We had a major life science event last Friday. If we had known you were so passionate about it, we would have got more. We have, I think, one at least, and who started with investment from Asahi Ventures. So now we get into the next phase, which is for a long time, we were trying to host thought leadership CVC events, but we wanted the anchor presenter to really have very high level of wisdom, someone who, really gets it. And after a lot of events, and we started partnering with this gentleman who attended MIT and Wharton. He was an investor in China before he came back to US and helped start TDK Ventures. We are always in awe of the depth of the presentations. And today this gentleman is going to talk about how to prepare for due diligence, which is, this kind of wisdom you just won't find in a regular event. And so after the high bar, which Jerry and Gayatri has laid, this is someone who also raises the bar. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Andrew Maywah of TDK Ventures. And this is our probably 7th thought leadership event. So Andrew, always, I'm in awe of you, and really thanks for being in Pitch Global's lives. So floor is yours.
Great, thank you, Casey. Really appreciate the wonderful introduction. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Today, I will be presenting on how startups can prepare for due diligence with CVCs. And so here's the agenda, very simple, very straightforward. First, I'll describe a little bit about TDK Ventures. Then I'll jump into CVC due diligence and then finish up with some Q&A. So about TDK Ventures. TDK Ventures is a technology-focused venture fund based in San Jose and Boston. And we have a very large, well, I should say, we have a team that's growing and a team that's focused on seed and early stage investments in innovative startups leveraging innovation in fundamental material science. We have 2 funds, Fund 1 size $50 million, Fund 2 size $150 million, so a total of $200 million. And yes, focused on seed to early stage startup investments. Here are core values. I'm not going to read each of them, but these core values are what sort of underscores the effort that TDK Ventures goes through in terms of our investments, in terms of our engagements, in terms of what we're trying to achieve for everybody, all the stakeholders in the value chain. Our investment criteria is really based on venture-like financial returns, strategic value with synergies, and attractive and sustainable future. So it's all 3. It's not 1 or 2. It's all of them have to be there for us to make an investment. Here's a look at the team. I'm not going to go through everyone, but we've grown considerably and we're continuing to grow. In terms of investment categories, there's several, and they're listed here. For myself, I focus mostly on industrial mobility, and I've been making a number of investments in those spaces recently. And here's a look at our portfolio companies. I'm not going to read each one, but Some of the notable ones across next-gen materials, energy and clean tech. Also, we look at connectivity and computing, and the industrial side, a lot of robotics. We have a number of mobility investments such as Autoflight, Faction, Starship. And we also have health tech investments like Mojo and Geneticist. Now onto the sort of the main part of the presentation, CVC due diligence. And really just to start off on really at the beginning, what is a CVC? Well, a CVC is an investment vehicle that is established to make investments in innovative startup companies where there are typically two different categories of aims, financial aims and strategic aims. Now, I know that, or I want to emphasize that not every single CVC is alike. They differ, and some focus more, say, on financial aims, some focus more on strategic aims. There's a huge spectrum. Some are only financially focused, others are only strategic focused, and really it would benefit one to understand what those objectives, those focuses are. But across all of these CVCs is a common theme that they tend to approach making small investments, let's call them minority investments in innovative companies for the purpose of achieving one or more of these aims. Here are some of the somewhat more well-known CVCs out there. I'm sure you're all familiar with Qualcomm Ventures, Intel Capital, Google Ventures as well. There's a wide variety and it ranges across multiple verticals. Could be software, could be hardware, could be telecom, could be medtech, could be pharmaceuticals. But again, all of these CVCs to some degree have one or more aims that could be potentially financial or strategic, but that help them achieve some kind of goal that they're looking for. And CVC investment is growing. We see that over the years, the number of investments that are being made by CVCs and the dollar amounts made by CVCs is increasing. And we expect that to continue for this year, and at least in the near term, we see that increasing tremendously. And the startups that are out there looking for funding have a choice of partners who they want to work with, and they have different needs. And in general, startups approach different investors or partners depending on the value they provide. We see that market access tends to be the one that motivates partnerships with corporates. It tends to be the one where we see startups that desire investment or collaboration with corporates and CVCs. They look into that as well. But CVCs can provide a number of other areas. Obviously funding, technical knowledge, expertise, business knowledge and expertise, access to facilities, and talent acquisition. It's just a question of which CVC we're talking about. Some CVCs specialize more in some areas, others specialize in other areas. And it really is important for a startup to really understand what those areas are and see how they can partner with the various corporates to achieve those desired aims. And really the beauty of the CVC investment model is you have a number of different ways where you can add value. And it's a virtuous cycle. The CVC, the corporate parent, and the startup can work together on so many different areas to continuously create value for everybody. And this is what makes CVC investment special is CVCs typically bring one or more powerful areas. Could be brand, could be access to markets, could be just all sorts of different capabilities that add to value creation for everybody involved. I also want to emphasize that CVCs can add value anywhere along the cycle. It doesn't have to be at a specific stage. It could be even at the earlier stage. For example, as startups are working on various concepts, they can enter into various, for example, accelerator programs or maybe even incubator programs and work with corporates on developing those ideas. Also, potentially different agreements on collaborating on product development. Also, can engage with corporates on helping them roll out products. And even to growth and expansion stage, corporates could be very helpful. For example, in the expansion stage, potentially startups are looking to expand into other markets overseas. And many corporates that have global presence can help with that. And so we see that CVCs and corporates in general can help any stage along the cycle. High level, I've bucketed due diligence to 3 big categories. And I did this because across investors, both CVC and VC, you have so many different ways of looking at due diligence. I just want to simplify it. I didn't want to make it too complicated. But the first stage we describe as screening, and this is where you have venture funds that are evaluating hundreds or even thousands of businesses, perhaps, and they're looking through to quickly flag the ones that fit and the ones that don't fit. And the ones that fit, they're going to spend a little bit more time on, go further along to see whether that's an investment opportunity. And screening also looks at the fit to various CVC strategic and financial objectives. For example, if given a startup, just the sort of the financial parameters are not a fit for the financial return the CVC is looking for, then it probably won't meet that screening test. And the same for strategic. If really there is no strategic fit, then that startup likely will not fit that screening test. The next phase then is the in-depth due diligence. Some call this business due diligence or commercial due diligence. Yeah, it just varies, but I'll just call this more in-depth due diligence. And this is where you go into more sort of the nuts and bolts of the opportunity and how the business will run, what's the market, the product, and really the overall viability of the investment opportunity. And this is both subjective and objective. Each CVC has a different way of viewing this, different lenses to view through, different team members to look at the opportunities. And then sort of as they go deeper, look at the feasibility of various synergies and the strategic objectives. And in some cases, some CVCs may not have very pronounced strategic objectives, and that's fine. And in that case, it's more just looking at the financial opportunity. And the reverse is also true. Some CVCs look primarily at the synergies and the strategic objectives, less so on the financial. But either way, these are some of the things that they would look for in the in-depth due diligence and really scrutinizing all the different aspects of the business. And then lastly is the legal due diligence, and that's more in-depth legal review, looking at the corporate structure, looking at taxes and employment contracts and things of that nature. And then lastly, documentation review, looking at the actual deal documents and seeing are they in line with expectations. And so let's take a look at the typical CVC deal flow funnel. Almost all CVCs follow this. It's a generalization, but just for the sake of this discussion, start off with leads, and these could be numerous, hundreds, maybe even thousands of leads that come from several different channels. These are tracked and looked at, but then screened. And the ones that fit the screen then come to this active opportunities, and these are ones that you look in further. And from there, even further due diligence, and as you see, the funnel is narrowing as you move further along. Till finally you reach the opportunities that are attractive and you want to submit a term sheet. And so then you go to term sheet and there's, or actually first investment committee, then term sheet, and then finally deal closing. And yeah, I just want to emphasize that it is a funnel. You start out with a large number and gradually over time, it gets narrowed to the one, maybe two or few, let's call them, investments that you may want to make for a particular space. Here's a look at the typical investment process. This is high level. Again, each CVC is different. I want to emphasize that this is not the same for all CVCs, and it could look very different depending on the investor. But from a high level, there are various meetings, so initial meetings, follow-up meetings, questions and answers, and then more sort of basic analysis, understanding the plan, understanding competitors and things like that. And then meeting potentially, well, obviously meeting the startup, meeting other portfolio companies as well. Then move into the due diligence phase, where a whole host of different analysis is done. And out of that, an investment memo will be prepared, and then it goes to a partner meeting or IC, where it's either pass or issue term sheet. And there's also the option that out of that partner meeting, more questions get asked or more information is needed. You just go back through that diligence phase loop. And then ultimately, you arrive at a term sheet, assuming everything works out, and then negotiate the terms, do the financial legal due diligence, references, and then documentation and closing. So high level, I can't include all the different items. I just want to include some of the major items that we look at for due diligence. The team, that's a big one. So looking at the long-term vision of the team. Where are they thinking long-term? And the reason we look at that is if we want to achieve venture-like financial returns, we do need to think about long-term growth. Where are their specialties? Do they have specialty in the area that they're building the startup? What is their business acumen? Are they, do they have the experience needed to manage a team of that type? And the cohesion, how well do the team members work together? Are they relatively new? Are they meeting each other for the first time, or have they known each other for years? On the product side, one of the big ones is product market fit. Really, that's what a lot of startups are trying to achieve. It's building a product that really meets the needs of a particular market, and they can continue to make and sell that product for a profit. How well is the product differentiated? Can that product stand out in the market and really sell against the competition? And what's the value proposition? Are they really providing strong value to the customer? Is the customer willing to pay for this? And how much is the customer willing to pay? So those are other areas that we look at. On the risk side, looking at many different kinds of risk. Timing for the market, is it too early or is it too late? Execution risk, can this team really execute and take the company the full distance? Product risk, or some would say technology risk. Is there any risk inherent to the product that would cause issues? Legal and regulatory risk, and that's one that gets looked at a lot, especially even for medical. We talked earlier about FDA clearance and FDA certification, and that also fits into that bucket. So these are some of the major areas. This is not all of them, and certainly these differ across investors, but I want to give you a sense for some of the big ones that we look at very closely. And in terms of questions, this is just a sample. I didn't want to include like everything, but I wanted to give you a sense for some of the major questions that get asked during the more in-depth due diligence. On the market size, how big is the market, and how much is the company taking up right now? How much more can the company penetrate into the market? On the product side, can we evaluate, does the product actually do what it's supposed to do? What's the technology behind it? Is there a technology approach? something innovative in the market? Will it work in the long term? Things like that. On the team side, we look into the background of team members. Are their roles and responsibilities clearly defined? And do we see a strong and healthy dynamic between the co-founders? This is on the cohesion side. And then lastly, the plans, how much money we need. If they need a huge amount of capital, maybe that could be a concern. If the amount of capital they're asking for is too small, that could also be a concern. And another question is, what's the exit path for the company? Is it IPO? Is it M&A? Or is it something else? And so this is just a taste of some of the questions that we ask of startups, and then based on their responses, decide whether to go deeper or pass. So how can startups prepare for CVC due diligence? I would say the first is really having a big conversation with the CVC to understand their vision and objectives and determine if they're a good fit. Investment it's a major event for a startup, and you don't want to just take money from anyone. You want to understand that you're taking investment from the right investor based on a number of different factors. Another point, understand that the due diligence process may be different for each investor. So many startups, they take investment as part of a syndicate. And in that syndicate, you'll have a number of different investors, and the process could be different. So understanding that process, understanding the timelines, understanding where they may need more input from you as the entrepreneur will help you sort of figure out how to balance the needs of all the investors in the syndicate. Talk to the CVC about their process, understand their process in detail, understand where there are specific junctures where you might be needed. Understanding that will help you greatly. A major part is going to be preparing a variety of presentations. So a lot of startups focus on a main deck, an intro deck, and I think that's just the starting point. For a lot of the startups that we talk to, they also have decks specifically made for the technology that goes into detail on how the technology works. I've also seen decks on IP. There's IP strategy. I've also seen decks on market, how the market is going to evolve, and also decks specifically tailored to competition. So understand that as a startup, you want to create the presentation materials that really clearly bring across what you're doing in terms of company, business, technology, so that the investor can understand and really fold that into his or her due diligence process. Another step that's very key is preparing a data room. And I've seen many data rooms over the years, and they tend to have different things, but in general, they'll focus on team information, product information, IP, financial details such as financial results and forecast, market information, how big the market is, how that market will grow over time, and also corporate information like certain corporate documents and meeting minutes of the board of directors and things like that. And sometimes it can take time to put together a solid data room, but it's very important that you have that. Next, preparing information materials on potential strategic fit. As I said before, many CVCs have strategic aims, and for that, after having an in-depth discussion with that CVC, you'll have a better idea of what kind of strategic aims those might be, and what kind of strategic fit are they looking for. Some CVCs require JDAs and other agreements, others don't. For example, TDK Ventures, we don't require these kinds of agreements. We're happy to help facilitate them, but they're not required for investment. They're not tied to investment. And understanding that will give you a better idea of how you can prepare for communicating that strategic fit and understanding what those synergies might be with that corporate. Another thing that I want to emphasize is assign a point person for communications and driving the due diligence process. In some cases, it's the CEO. In other cases, it's the CFO. I've seen many different models, but having one point person that's really driving the process is key, because that person can then be, as a point of contact, can really understand perspectives and put together the information in a way that benefits all the stakeholders in the process. Next point, I want to emphasize, make an effort to answer investor questions very clearly, thoroughly, accurately, in a timely manner. As this process goes on, the investors may ask more and more questions, and in some cases go deeper into certain issues that they may see as risks potentially. And so then it's on the startup to really answer those questions, whether in person, over the phone, or in writing, in a way that answers those questions, as I said before, clearly, thoroughly, accurately, in a timely manner. And I think that this is both an art and a science. I mean, certainly you want to be accurate, but if accurate means writing pages and pages and pages of answers, then you may not be able to get the answers in a timely manner. So it's really about balancing all those needs and to be able to get everything answered in time for the investment closing. Also, I want to stress, be prepared to provide demos, site visits, customer intros, and intros to your existing investors. This is important. A lot of CVCs, and I would say investors in general, want these kinds of touch points to get a better idea of the business and the viability of the business. And so have those prepared. And really, it's about a long-term relationship. And as I said before in previous presentations, you want to aim to build trust with CVCs, and that happens over time. It's after meeting and having discussions and really getting a sense that you see eye to eye and really you're working together to achieve something, create value together as partners. So I think that's it for the presentation. I'd like to open up to Q&A.
Andrew, once again, great presentation. And even how to set up a deal room could be a future topic. I'm just going to consolidate the questions and ask a master question here. Now, often people get rejected out of your funnel, not your, but investors and CVC's funnel, because they may think, we don't want to do due diligence. Now, sometimes private advice we give to entrepreneurs, not much in public, is we say, do your own pre-diligence, and have it a credible person or credible organization associate with it. That will at least get you into the door sometimes. So do you have, even though that may not have a legal standing, but the heavy lifting, the tedious work has already been done. And so do you have any comment on this?
Yes, absolutely. So I completely agree with you. I think that can add a ton of value and greatly speed up the due diligence process. For example, in many cases, we at TDK Ventures, we invest in companies that are innovating in many deep tech solutions that could potentially be somewhat complicated, which is fine. We as a team, we're experienced and we have the capabilities to make those evaluations on our own. However, in some cases, if the startup were to say, for example, partner with a US government lab, and the US government lab did an independent third-party evaluation of the technology, that would carry a lot of weight. And being able to share such a report with the investor would greatly speed up the investor's own process in terms of validating the technology. That's one example. Also, in terms of validating the market, perhaps sharing different reports from consultants such as McKinsey or Bain, and bringing in again other third-party experts who can independently make statements or make or attest to certain points that the startup thinks are important. And I think this can greatly benefit and speed up the process for a number of startups out there.
Great. One last question. one of the companies we are mentoring on behalf of US government programs in Northern California, their founder asked a question on chat. So because they have raised almost 5 million, including introductory grant of 150,000. So, and he's actually meeting with a big strategic. His name is Christopher Haig. He's from Ephemeral Medical. His question is, do CVCs approach valuation and deal terms differently from VCs? And if so, how?
It's a good question, and I think the way I would answer it is this. I think that in general, CVCs and VCs typically approach valuation in similar ways. There usually is not a major difference in the way a CVC or VC would value a particular company or approach deal terms. Now, however, there's caveats. Okay, as I said before in my presentation, there's a wide variety of CVCs out there, and as I'm sure you can imagine, there's a wide variety of VCs, and the way they look at deals and the way they sort of view a startup's potential may be different. And so if you view it from that lens, then yeah, the answer is certainly they do differently, but it's simply because of their own particular needs and their own particular point of view. But as a whole, generally across the industry, and I've invested alongside a number of CVCs and a number of financial VCs, the way we approach valuation is almost the same. And the way we look at deal terms is the same. And especially because for TDK Ventures, our deal terms tend to be what we describe as vanilla NVCA. And basically what I'm trying to say is we don't add any extra wild or exotic terms onto the deal. We stick with what generally the industry sees as what's appropriate and what is standard for the market for a particular type of investment. And of course, there are probably investors out there that are different, that add on other terms and other processes that may not be standard. That happens. And I think this goes to my point of earlier, having a long discussion with a particular CVC to understand their process, to understand their point of view. I think that will give you a better idea of how they may approach a specific opportunity.
Great. Andrew, thanks once again. Now we are going to get to the next part of this program. Please watch the presentations. So for everybody, now we are going to begin the introduction of the rest of the investors. We already have an introduction of 3 judges, Gayatri, Andrew, and Jerry. And after which we will give you the order, because it's very important to listen to the judges and what they say, because we are a true community. As you can see, this is just not people come together one time and they are gone. If you, like Telemetrak has, or Christopher from SST is becoming, if you come again and again, you will make deep connections. And if a particular person is not a right fit for investing, they know others. It's your opportunity to get into the network. And on that note, we will begin. Our next judge is someone who was one of the first CVCs we ever met 1.5 years ago. Really excited to have him, and a very, very tech-focused investor, and very helpful. He's from Hypertherm Ventures, and he's also on the broader, startup alliances in East Coast dealing with policy. So, and the way we know this person is another judge today, who's the co-chair of Caltech Angels, introduced us. So Nathan Pascarella from Hypertherm Ventures, really excited to have you back. And we interviewed you, I think, in our first or second event series with TDK. So
right,
to have you back, Nathan. Can you introduce yourself and give your investment thesis briefly?
Yes, sure. Thank you very much, Casey. Glad to be back again for this session. Hypertherm Ventures, created in 2019, is a corporate fund focused solely on advanced manufacturing. We really stay inside the 4 factory walls and probably the walls of the local distribution center tied to those manufacturing arms. We invest in early stage series seed through the B round. And we have a portfolio right now of 6 companies, and it goes across the realm of AI, machine learning, robotics, and automation, and additive manufacturing, continuing to grow, but focused mostly here in North America to start, but also open to investing in Europe and Israel. Looking forward to this. Thank you.
That's great, Nathan. And now, today we have modified the format to combine it with thought leadership and presenting, pitching, which we'll do every other month. So please, I'll take your guidance offline on it. And as I'm always about connections and letting people understand how deeper connections are made. So we met Nathan over 1.5 years ago by our board member, who is co-chair of Caltech Angels, who led investment into Telemetrak. He's also founder of Simmons Goodspeed VC. And this is a person with very deep background in corporate, working in corporates, HP in its heydays. Then he worked for Bill Draper he was there when they invested in Skype. So it's our good pleasure to introduce my dear friend, philosopher and guide, Jim Simmons.
Hi, Casey. Do you want to, let me turn on my camera?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, there. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to be at your events. I think as everyone knows, he somehow has a way of getting everybody together, it's terrific. And Simmons Goodspeed Ventures, we invest in deep tech hardware, often physics and chemistry based. One of our deals is what we believe is the first breakthrough viable water treatment technology since the 1960s. It does have applications in semiconductor manufacturing. And we have some other deals too, fashion technology, but it's typically deep tech hardware. And similarly, the Caltech Angels Network, which is probably a little earlier, has similar types of, likes. We're looking for maybe for Caltech Angels Network, a select few deals that, are high quality, and there's been a bunch of them that have come through KC. So I should stop talking now, but it's a pleasure to be here.
Great. And Jim, I was in LA recently, and I saw that you are running events with Pasadena Angels, which is also getting affiliated to Tech Coast Angels, and they are really expanding. So maybe we'll bring someone from there next time. So
Sure. Yeah.
On that note, we have 2 more judges. The next judge is someone, as Pitch Global, we are now partnering with 2 former, leaders from Singularity University to create, to kind of deepen our education innovation offerings. One of them is the former CFO, Virendra Ahluwalia, who's here, and the other is Newton Paskin, who headed Singularity in Latin America and Ventures as well. So we know these 2 gentlemen for a long time. And Virendra also, who is a very battle-hardened CFO. 22 years ago, he was CFO of Shutterfly, which is a multi-billion-dollar market cap company now. So Virendra, great to have you back.
Virendra, thank you, Casey.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm unmuted. Hey, thanks, Casey, for that. So, quick introduction for myself. As Casey just said, I've been in the Valley for the past 25, 30 years. I am more the fundraiser than an investor, but as like everyone else, over time, we become investors also. So I'm more of an angel investor and now actually working on my next thing about either raising a fund, small fund ourselves, and doing something more seriously about an investment from a thesis perspective. As an operator, I've been all over the space from an ag company to e-commerce to networking, voice over IP, spent a lot of time in the life sciences or the biosciences, software, and my last 4 or 5 years have been spent in the cannabis space. So, I helped launch 2 companies there. Both of them got acquired, and that is what brings me here to now starting to look at my next chapter in life, be it as an investor myself or be it what I call the next baby. But yes, I've been in the Valley, for a long time, and I say I've had probably every title that one can think of. And my favorite title is CJO, and if anyone can guess what that title means, I'll take you out for a lunch whenever we meet. So I'll just leave it as that.
Okay, we won't hazard a guess. But our last, but not the least, we love women investors. We love women, especially CVCs, very few out there, and especially from other countries. This person is the CVC from, they are one of the top 3 Coke distributors in the world, multi-billion-dollar Mexican company, Arca Ventures, very active in food tech impact, this kind of areas, water. And I met her, ran into her at a conference last week. So excited to meet someone in person after all these years of Zoom. So my pleasure to introduce Anna Aguilar of Arca Ventures. And Anna, welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Casey, for the invitation. And it's a great pleasure to be here and to learn more about what is happening in different CVCs and in the ecosystem in general. Yeah.
That's great. And once again, Anna is an insider. She knows some of these other CVCs like TDK and Micron and all, I'm sure, because they are very, very one of the first CVCs of Mexico to really dial into Silicon Valley. So they are pioneers and once again, very well connected. So on that note, I am going to do a roll call and then give the order. Then we will have 2 sponsor intros, which is TriNet and SKCPR. And then we will get into the 7 companies who are presenting. So I'll read the order now. First company is, usually we have majority companies who have presented to us before. Today it's kind of almost half and half. So first company is a new one. Really excited to see them, Dakota Lithium. I think they're raising $50 million Series B. Second company presenting is one of our ultra favorites. You've already seen them. So sorry, Dakota Lithium, person presenting is Orion. Second company is Telemetrak, person presenting is Erik. Third company is Soteria Big, person presenting is Brian. They've also raised very solid amount, it seems. Fourth company is SST Wireless, one of our favorites from Canada. They've placed multiple times. The next company is Ascent Tool, local Bay Area company, first time, really looking forward to. Then we have 24/7 Solar, Bruce. And last company is also one of our regulars recent times, is Just Light, Peter, and which started by upfront CVC investment from Ashahi. I don't know, that's like really rare. So happy to have him here as part of the discourse. And now I hand over the floor to Megan Rice of TriNet, who is our sponsor. And the TriNet First Republic Bank partnership really can level the playing field of startups when you want to hire senior people, because insurance costs and all are often a deal killer. So Megan, thanks for being here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Casey. Absolutely. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. My name is Megan Rice. I have been in the HCM industry for over 8 years. And, I just kind of like to say as the world is seeing significant changes left and right, and really the way that we do business is changing along with that. And really being able to adapt to those changes is really critical for sustainable business success. And my personal opinion, I think the biggest HR challenge startups like yourself face today is really identifying and understanding the corporate landscape of the future, because as industries and technologies really continue to evolve, and as new generations enter the workforce, and as globalization increases competition, it's really the nature of work that's responding and adapting to these environmental influences. And that's why it's really human resources that will really strengthen an organization, which is their key requirement. It's people. And that's why here at TriNet, we really provide a unique HR solution that helps protect your valuation with practical HR advice, allowing you to really just grow faster by leveling the playing field for talent, and really helps you extend your runway by optimizing your burn rate. And because you're armed now with better talent, streamlined HR processes, and more predictable employee expenses, TriNet startup clients are really able to concentrate on R&D and really innovate and solve the largest problems in the world. So as Casey had mentioned, we have an exclusive partnership with First Republic Bank, then can actually oftentimes offset your TriNet administrative fees. So really today I'm here as a resource and super excited to hear everyone presenting. So thank you again, Casey, and thank you everyone.
Thank you, Megan. Now we have our, the other sponsor, SKCPR, whose founder, Sharon Sim, started this event and introduced me at the beginning. And Sharon, again, is someone who's very, very connected with Tech PR. She has brought senior editors of TechCrunch, US Today, all these people to our in-person events in the past. And she's interviewed me in LA Tribune Gala last year. So Sharon, floor is yours.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Casey. I just want to echo what he said earlier about how Pitch Global is indeed a community. We've known each other, I don't know, 5 years now, Casey, right?
Yes.
And over the years, we've referred startups to each other. We've worked together. I've also met Megan through Casey. We are very happy clients of TriNet. We're a small business, but because of TriNet, we're able to appear like a big business because we can offer Fortune 500 benefits of HR benefits to my employees. So we're very grateful for that. Without all the HR headaches that, as a founder of the company that I have to deal with. So so I really appreciate that. It's a great outsourced HR resource. In the meantime, thank you for giving me a minute to talk about SKC. We have been around for about 10 years. Mainly specialized in startups. That's been our soft spot and passion. And I have a little tech startup story for you, an exit story to share with you, because I know as entrepreneurs, it's a bit of a trudge sometimes when you're knocking on doors and investors are saying no. So I have a little story of a startup we helped a few years back. They've only raised maybe 1.5 million when they worked with us, half a year in business, really did not know many people. That it's a mobile app that was set up at a time when Android phones are the wild, wild west. When you download the app, you're not sure what kind of malware would just infiltrate your phones. So they have this app that tell people if this is a malicious app or not, or just kind of rank people by safety. And they're like, please help us. We're competing against all this competitors and they're killing us. And we really need to hit 1 million downloads and just get some traction. At that time, it's only just a very small team as well, with a large research team based in China. So that's another thing to overcome. So we came up with some good strategies to help them. Ideally, I think a lot of VCs also realize that the higher the startup's name and recognition is out there, sometimes evaluation also go up with that. So in a sense, we help create awareness for them in a few ways. Because they have all this data of all these malicious apps that ranking, we created reports that help them distribute to the media. And we also push out features that were really unique of the app that they have. Like if you have somebody who randomly pick up your phone and try to enter the wrong password, they would, if they do it 3 times, the phone will take a picture of the person and send it to you by email. And so then the other report that came out was we started ranking the marketplaces, what was safe and what was not. And the result of all this effort was they started building thought leadership. The thought leadership had been brought up a few times today. that they know what they're doing, is a trusted mobile security app that should be paid attention to. So we got a lot of press coverage, independent, credible coverage from top tier NBC News, PC Mag, Digital Trends, that really put them in another level. Where at that time, Amazon, because they were ranked as one of the marketplaces, so they got some big companies' interest and attention, people reaching out to them to talk to them. Ultimately, it became a bidding war between two big companies in China, and they ultimately got bought by Baidu. So this was, the investors only put in 1.5 million. Some of them were angel investors. When they got sold, it was about, they sold for 36 million. So it's a happy success story. So hopefully that gives you some hope as you work on your startups. Good luck with your pitching today.
Thank you, Sharon. Very inspiring. And now we go into the main act. We are slightly running behind time, but if we just stick to the time zone, all the timing, we should be okay. So please, everybody, stick to your timing. Please tell, especially if you are new, we don't know you, just upfront say how much have you already raised, how much revenue you have, things which catch attention. So, it's good luck to everybody, and really excited to, meet the first company, Ryan Ellison of Dakota Lithium. Ryan, floor is yours.
Great, thank you so much. I'm just gonna share my screen here. My name is Ryan Ellison, as Casey mentioned. I am one of the founders of Dakota Lithium, and we are a company that has raised, we have raised about $2 million in the past. We're looking to raise 50 million in a Series B, and that's what I'm here to talk about today. So as many of you know, the lithium battery space is a very big space right now. This is from a Department of Energy report. In 2020, the global level of power in terms of energy storage from lithium batteries is about 750 gigawatt hours, and that's expected to go up to about 2,500 gigawatt hours on a global level. And this is an old report, so I imagine that's actually quite a bit higher. And as a company, we've experienced a lot of that growth too. So Dakota Lithium is a company that today is focused on the development, both research and development and the construction of lithium iron phosphate battery packs. So today, many of the lithium batteries you hear about in the news are for much larger vehicles, so cars and trucks. We focus on a space that is smaller and sometimes forgotten about in the lithium battery industry. So that's 72 volts and below. And this is everything from small urban vehicles, like think of half the size of a smart car, all the way down to backup power supplies for your home. And we do everything from powering boats, bass fishing boats, like you see in this picture here, to working on R&D and the future of lithium iron phosphate batteries. So as I mentioned, growth in this business is booming, and we as a business are experiencing that as well. This is our profits and revenue chart from the last few years. In 2019, we were a company doing about 2 million in revenue with some small losses. And last year we did, in 2021, 19.5 million in revenue with about 1 million in profit. This year we're on track to do 40 million with about 2 million, 3 million in profit, and the years following even bigger. So we're experiencing that growth, obviously, and with that comes some pretty unique challenges. There's challenges on just the capitalization side for the manufacturing of packs, but there's also challenges with the supply chain. So I'll show a slide a bit later, but the United States is really far behind in the manufacturing supply chain for lithium batteries across all fields, all different types of chemistry. And this slide here just shows the steps. So unlimited time, so I won't get into the details of it. But today, 90% of the lithium batteries, whether that's in your phone or in a car, come from the Shenzhen province of China, and they go through this manufacturing step here, and then they're eventually brought to the United States and sold, or any part of the world, and sold to the customer. And we actually have experience as a company working through and manufacturing some of these pieces in the supply chain, from the pack assembly down to the cathode and anode powder manufacturing. So our goal as a company right now is, with the growth that we're experiencing, we believe that there's no other way to support our customers than to bring our supply chain back home to the United States. So we're in the process of doing this $50 million Series B in order to develop a pack assembly plant that will be automated, and then to develop lithium iron phosphate anode and cathode material, which might be very technical and high level, and I'm happy to get into that a little bit later. But one of the unique things about what we're trying to do here is, many times if you follow any of the lithium manufacturing stories around the world, is that many times people raise a significant amount of capital to build up a manufacturing plant. So that would be these pieces here. And as they're doing that plant, they will go out and find customers and start filling that pipeline. And of course, we all know that there's challenges and struggles with building up manufacturing plants. And so typically those get delayed, and then therefore the customers get delayed with their products, and you have an unhappy customer before the company has even started generating revenue. What we have done as a business is built up a pretty robust customer chain, for all the way from direct to consumer sales to OEM business to business sales. And we have a very robust supply chain in China. So that machine is there, it's growing, it's operating, which is clearly shown by our revenues. And we're trying to raise funds in order to build up a parallel supply chain in the US, which eliminates a lot of risk on the setup and construction of a plant. And it's something which is pretty unique in this lithium manufacturing world. So we're really excited about that.
Ryan, we have run out of time, so take 50 seconds and wrap up.
Sure, yeah. So as I mentioned, we're raising 50 million in a Series B with the valuation to be determined. 20 million of that's for our cathode and anode plants, 10 million on the pack assembly, and then 5 million on expansions and sales. And then there's some room for a secondary on that. So with that, I'll wrap it up. And if there's any questions, I'll take them.
That's great. I mean, any question? I have a question, which is, this seems you're tying in a lot of capital in manufacturing. So it is something which maybe have an alternate to show. Sometimes we tell people, show alternate visions. So here, first impression is, wow, I mean, someone else can put most of the capital into sales. Probably that will really accelerate. Who knows? So my first impression is, go with an option, because it just seems making it very capex heavy. We can take one more question if there is any. Otherwise, let's talk more, and I'll take people's feedback and talk to you later.
I have a question. Quick question. So thanks for sharing what you're building. Seems interesting, but what's to prevent other more larger battery manufacturers from moving into the space and competing against you?
There are plenty of battery manufacturers moving into this space. It's a heavy business right now. The US government's investing $30 billion in grant funding just for lithium iron phosphate cathode material. One of the slides I skipped was the fact that the US is producing 0% of the world's cathode and anode material, which is the basics for a lithium battery. And the growth is so big right now that there's going to be big players, Ford, Tesla, all these guys, but it's all going to be for self-consumption for their vehicles. And nobody is thinking about all the other devices that need to have energy storage. And so we know there's going to be other players in it, but there's a ton of room for that as the growth slides show. So we're not as concerned about that, because just there's not enough right now. There's not enough capacity to meet demand in this space.
Wow, that's a great answer. All right, we have to move on to the next. Once again, much respect. Great seeing this first presentation. Next company presentation we've seen many times. Our gentleman who gave the State of the Union at the beginning, my dear friend, Erik Eklund of Telemetrak. Erik, looking forward to the new presentation with the 1.25 million government grant included.
Great, thank you. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Ryan, let's connect later. I'm sure you know how to get Department of Energy funding, but it'd be fun to compare notes. As you pointed out, they are throwing a lot of money around right now, and you deserve some of it. Let me share my screen here and then launch into it. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'll go to full screen or whatever it's called.
Time, Erik, please.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, I'll launch into it here. We're Telemetrak. We offer a full system that uses kinetic energy to track unpowered logistics assets like the world's 30 million intermodal containers and their trailers. Now, these carry 95% of all manufactured goods, including just about everything that's in the rooms we're sitting in that's not breathing, so present company excluded. But your chair was probably in a container at some point. Our tracking device is a little bit like a self-winding watch, in that its power source is the movement of whatever it's on. No other solution can track containers continuously. That's every second without battery changes, which are not practical, or external power. We're getting a great deal of traction at the moment. $50,000 in revenue, $825,000 in private investment funds raised through Angels. And then we're finalizing the negotiations on a $1.25 million Defense Department R&D contract. Investors have recently put more money in, but we've closed the pre-seed round. It hit 155% of goal. And the second U.S. Air Force unit, unrelated to the first contract, they have a different need, has approached us. We think we can get additional funding for that, as we know how to do that now. Okay, everything's big about the container logistics industry, including its problems. Containers move $8 trillion worth of cargo every year, but containers don't have any of their own electric power, but 5% of them have access to electric power. The rest simply don't. The result is that there's minimal tracking of containers when they're on land because tracking devices need electric power to work. And this leads to some colossal inefficiencies, like over 100 ships at anchor off the ports of LA and Long Beach right now, and over $30 billion in cargo theft in the US alone, well over $200 billion a year in cargo theft worldwide. Here are some of those ships ruining the view off a beach at LA. That may be Malibu. I'm not sure. It's definitely a beach in LA, but these ships are floating around with $26 billion worth of cargo aboard because there's a mess in container logistics. Now, the underlying problem here, as I mentioned, is there's no electric power available. Solar panels have been tried, but even in ideal conditions, they underdeliver by about 99% of the power you need to do continuous tracking. That's every second, not just once a day. And containers are normally stacked. Surprise, surprise, containers can block the sun, cutting off the power to the solar panel. Battery changes are just not acceptable in this industry. The biggest ships now have over 24,000 containers aboard. Our solution is what we call motion power. That's our proprietary and patented technology to capture a tiny fraction of the kinetic energy of whatever it is we're tracking, turn that into electricity, and run our tracking device. Okay, as a result of this, we can literally capture over 1 million times more data than incumbent solutions, which are generally run on batteries or solar panels. We also have 1,000 times more processing power because we can use a microprocessor that it's a full gigahertz, 1 gigahertz computer instead of a microcontroller like everyone else. We use an MPU. As a result, with 1 million times more data and 1,000 times more processing power, we're 1 billion times better, or at least we can do dramatically more than our competitors can do. For example, we can report every second when the asset is moving, not just once, twice, or 4 times a day. Again, we do all of this without any battery changes or external power or dependence on solar panels. Both Maersk, the world's largest ocean carrier, and IBM, another large company, have told us that they have not even heard of anybody else who can do this. We see a large market at $19 billion TAM. We believe we are unique in the space and that only Telemetrak can continuously track unpowered logistics assets like containers. There are a number of companies that can track trucks, for example. That's a lot easier because trucks have 12-volt power systems to run the lights and everything like that, which makes running a tracking device very easily. All these companies are doing very well. They cannot track containers because there's no power available. Our closest competitors are the solar and battery-powered tracking devices, which report intermittently once, twice, 4 times a day. thanks to motion power, we are not dependent on any of those power sources, battery replacements or recharging external power or solar panels. As a result, we have 1 million times more data, more than that actually, and over 1,000 times more processing power. So we can deliver a bunch of services that nobody else can even talk about. In terms of traction, I mentioned we're just about to sign a large Defense Department research and development contract. It's not a grant, it's an R&D contract. We've got about $50,000 in revenue to date. We've closed the pre-seed round at 155%. The largest and fifth largest ocean carriers and the second and fifth largest chassis or container trailer leasing companies want to test us. We now have a sole source justification to sell to the federal government, which means we can get the contracts done in 6 weeks instead of 18 months. And Telemetrak is an SBA certified hub zone company. Basically, our office is in a poor part of Oakland, which gives us, so the government can do us some favors. There are 6 distributors who want to take us to 119 different countries. I'd like to underline that we do not have just a sensor. We do not just have a tracking device. We have a full system, which includes its backend in the cloud and a bunch of user interfaces. And each one of our tracking devices, and there can be millions of these in the network when it's fully built out, can accommodate over 128 sensors. So it's a pretty robust system, we think. Here's a picture of how our device looks inside its housing. It has 2 external antennae. This one's for GPS, that's for cellular data. We like to hide the device inside the asset we're tracking. So here it is hidden inside the tail bar of a trailer. You pull the lights off, put the device in there, put the lights back on, it's fine. This is a picture of what our board looks like. This TDK accelerometer, which we use, I'm in love with. It is fabulous. I sent it a Valentine's Day card 10 weeks ago. Anyway, there are 2 founders. We're both engineers. I happen to have an MBA as well. We've got 5 other engineers, some heavy-hitting advisors, and some pretty heavy-hitting investors, actually. One guy, as I mentioned earlier, was once CEO of Sun Microsystems. He knows what he's doing. Unit economics, we lease our units out for $20 per unit per month. That includes all hardware, software, basic services, and connectivity. We can do that at an 80% gross margin. I may not have time to get into the details on this slide, but if we lease our tracking devices out $20 a month to our customers. They are generally asset leasing companies in terms of trailers, chassis leasing companies. They can resell the tracking service for $1 a day to their customers, that is the truckers that lease their trailers from them. That's immediately profitable for them. We believe we can double their operating margins and also double the operating margins of the trucking companies that use the trailers. Go to market plan. We're starting with chassis or container trailers. Then there are even more trailers out there. There are 6 million other trailers in the United States alone. 2 million tractors or semi-trucks, 6 million trailers. Containers, that's the largest single market. And then we see a large market opportunity in big data on real-time cargo movements. Financial projections, we think they're great. I can come back to this. We see a number of potential acquirers. Verizon, for example, has made 3 large asset tracking acquisitions. Fleetmatics, it paid 8.4 times revenue for that. Our revenue projection in 5 years is about just under $200 million a year. If you multiply that by 8.4, you get up to $1.7 billion. I'm not promising that, but there's potential for a big exit here, probably through acquisition. To sum up, again, we're about to sign a large Defense Department contract, and there's potential for more. We've got $50,000 in revenue. We've raised $825,000. We've closed the pre-seed round, which is fun to be able to say in an investor presentation. Thanks for calling, but you're too late. Anyway, call me anyway. I'd love to chat because we'll be raising more money in about a year, I think. We'd like to do a $4 million Series A late this year. Here's a rough, this pie chart shows the use of funds we have in mind for the Series A. So we're solving big problems using proprietary technology that's patented. Nobody else has it. And we're getting plenty of traction, we think. I'd welcome any questions you might have, although I may have already burnt up all my time. I'm not sure.
That's true, Erik. You have burnt up your time unless someone has a quick question, which I think it's best to do it offline.
Yeah, just email me. Thank you. I'll stop talking now.
Awesome, Erik. Fantastic. And now we get to our next company, which is also first time, Sotera Big, and person presenting is Brian Morin. Brian, floor is yours.
Great. You guys see and hear me?
Yes. Welcome. First time.
Yeah.
Welcome
thank
to
you.
Pitch Global.
Let me share my screen and then I'll jump in. So hello, my name is Brian Morin. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Soteria Battery Innovation Group. Finances you asked for, we've raised about $6.5 million to date. We've just agreed to a term sheet for a $20 million Series B with a lead investor, and we need co-investors. So two things to know about Soteria. The first is that we have a technology that makes lithium-ion batteries inherently safe. And I'll explain what that means. And the second is that we are taking this to market through an industry-wide consortium. Looks like Dakota Lithium and us, we have a mutual partner in American Battery Factory. So we touch a lot of different parts of the industry. Lithium-ion batteries are suffering from a drumbeat of multi-billion-dollar negative public events. The most recent ones are the recall of the Chevy Bolt, that was $2 billion, and the sinking of an EV container ship off the coast of Portugal with $440 million of cars aboard. Our vision is inherently safe cells everywhere, and let me show you what that means. So what you have here are cell phone size cells. On the left are standard cells, and on the right are cells with the Soteria technology implemented. Very different performance when you do these nail penetration tests. The standard cells all ignite. The Soteria cells survive a variety of different mechanical, thermal, and electrical damage, in this case, mechanical. We're setting a new standard in lithium-ion battery safety, and these cells that you have in front of you are a result of that standard. And this gives me comfort because this is kind of what I envision the batteries looking like after you drive your EV into a tree at 80 miles an hour. Not that you should do that, but they didn't catch fire. And in fact, these cells are all still functioning cells. They still work. And so if you're on the interstate, you can drive to the next exit, get to a gas station, get to help. So there's three pillars to our value proposition. The first is the revolutionary safety that you just saw. The next is full compatibility. It's a drop-in compatible with every lithium-ion battery electrode, every form factor, every manufacturing process. We get to what we do by taking metal out. So there's a natural weight reduction as well as a cost reduction. That copper is expensive and heavy. And then our technology delivers equivalent electrical performance to the batteries that are out there. And the last is the industry support that comes through our consortium. We put our technology out as an open innovation platform and asked the consortium members to do what they would naturally do to advance and protect their own business. So think of it as the Microsoft IBM model of taking a technology to market. And we're asking our consortium members to develop the chips and PCs or chips and disk drives and printers and software to make the whole ecosystem work. And of course, we get a broad and robust supply chain. Our consortium spreads throughout the entire supply chain. You have the large equipment and material manufacturers on the left, cell manufacturers in the middle, and these 30 cell manufacturers speak to the breadth at which the technology can be applied, that it really is working for all of these cells. And then the end users on the right who will take our technology to market in the cells in their devices. Four things we do in the consortium. The first is the open innovation platform. We manage about 130 projects within the consortium, mostly paid for by the consortium members. So the result is about this 10-to-1 multiple of our technology or our R&D dollars to theirs. The next is our promise back to the consortium that we're going to license the technology using FRAN terms. That's going to be the major source of our revenue. So everybody has access. And then we've set this very stringent safety standard so that people will know what we mean when we say safe, because everybody says safe, but nobody says what it means. So we've very clearly defined what it means. And then for cells that can be certified to that standard, we're going to let people use the Soteria name and Soteria mark as the sticker on the outside that tells you it's got the safe cells on the inside. We're starting our market development in 4 small device markets. The nice thing is they're small devices, not small markets. So even these small devices give us potential royalties of $500 million. The development time is kind of 1 to 3 years. And we have a portfolio of projects in this market that'll be coming to market in 2023. Electric vehicles represents the big opportunity. Current trends are driving more stress on the battery, which means they need more safety, robustness, and abuse tolerance. Total potential market for this for us in royalties is $4 billion. Very experienced management team. Myself, think of me as a product CEO. Carl has been the chief engineer at 2 lithium-ion battery companies prior to Soteria, and Maddie Yergin and John Lee run the consortium globally. We've won a bunch of awards. And now our revenue streams and where we are. So we have about $1 million in revenue, trailing 12 months now. We'll end up at about 1.3 this year. The membership fees are the dominant part of that, about $800,000 this year, and can get to decent revenue. You know, $100 million is a reasonable expectation within 10 years. Licensing revenue will never be large, but it is meaningful this year. Royalties is the big chunk. We charge about between 1% and 2% of the total battery cost. And then certifications can also be a relatively large hit in the long run as we certify the devices to meet our standard. If you see this mapped out over time, what you see is revenue growing to $10 million over the next 3 or 4 years. But then once EVs kick in, you get into hundreds of millions of dollars and eventually $1 billion. Like I said, we're raising a Series B now. It's led by Keiretsu Forum. It's $20 million, $60 million pre-money valuation. It's participating preferred shares, so nice investor-friendly term sheet. And this is going to be really for us to put together the team, technology, and partners to be successful in electric vehicles. So summarizing, we've got inherently safe cells, taking them to market through an open innovation consortium. We're commercializing now. It's an award-winning company with an experienced team and a capital efficient model in a growing market. And I'll stop and take a question or two.
That's great. This is very new age business model. You know, is very seldom we see people consolidating on such a grand scale. That's very high level, you know, thinking. You know, love the vision. And I think this could be, you know, one CVC could just come in and become, because they'd love to be the prime of something like this. And do you think if some company comes in and says, we'll become the lead, and then, but our name has to be there, something like that, are you open to all these?
Absolutely. Or you know, the first thing would be if they'd be open to being a co-lead. Keiretsu would very much welcome a co-lead for the round, and then the discussions would flow from there. But absolutely, there's opportunity for somebody with a significant check to come in and set up a strategic agreement. Also, the strategic needs to stand alone, but you know, we're here to make batteries safe everywhere, and so we need partners.
Wow. Andrew, have you seen such business models in other industries where they are consolidating supply chain end-to-end kind of in any other industries, non-battery as well?
Consolidating supply chains?
Or just putting this kind of consortium together, which can put, you know, which can bring together, or with so many parties and members involved, this kind of business model?
Not common.
Not common. Yeah.
Yeah, not common.
Yeah. That's good. Great. I think for the first time, this is a great introduction to our community, and we know Keiretsu very well, because especially in life sciences, even last Friday, we had Keiretsu's life science head in Silicon Valley, Chris Apfel, as our keynote. So let's be in touch, and I'll see the pitch once again because this is the first time it is complex pitch. So I need to kind of delve into it more, but I'll give you my my updates privately. But what you said, the supply chain just caught my attention, even though it is a small part of this entire scheme of things.
Yeah, just so you know, Chris is an investor in Soteria, so
nice,
good friend.
Oh, nice, very nice. We are meeting him on Wednesday. He actually invited me to his place, new place in Palo Alto. That's beautiful. So now you become an insider by default. So that's great. So wonderful seeing this. Now we have to move to the next company, which is Ascend Tool, and person presenting is George Go. He is local, so we are always interested in local companies because we have a mandate from US government programs to, you know, mentor them for free if they can create future jobs. So George, floor is yours.
Unmute. Okay. Okay. You can see it, right?
Yes.
Okay. I have a little bit trouble to get it large enough. Oh, okay. So, okay, that's the last page. Sorry, I was looking. So basically, we provide technology solutions for corporations. Basically, we have solutions for semiconductor, the battery manufacturing, solar panel manufacturing, low-E glass, and the nuclear fusion. So we are a profitable company, been in business for 17 years. Here is really for corporate VC to see what we can help you. So the problem we try to solve is, to have an ultimate solution for all the technologies involved in our field. The problem corporation has is that you need a long-term commitment to develop technology. IBM, AT&T Bell Lab used to do it, but they couldn't afford it anymore. Then you have a lot of failed single product companies. So they do their incremental changes. They can get overwhelmed by out-of-box thinking, like Apple just wiped out Sony's recording music business. So they also have a limited resource. Sometimes somebody may have an IP like us. They may have trouble to get in the market. So what we do is that we build the experience many years, 40 years. We engage with customers, always think about the most difficult problem they have, and have solutions. And a lot of solution takes a lot of time. It's you just cannot rush it. Same with us. So then we develop solution and sell to people. We solve their problems, and many of solution is solution as we call it best against nature. Basically, the nature's limit. So for just take example you have. You take a deposition, PECVD, sputtering. We list all the problems in the last 80 years. We just solve every problem to the limit. Basically this is 100% for everything that's good and 0% very bad. So we take the, for example, plasma source is the lowest pressure in the world, in the history, as you say. It's uniform, it's perfect. We take that for the semiconductor for processing, to make the platform the much higher throughput, lower cost, things like that. We have a lot of patent, just to this. Then we use it. So the key is the application. You see, this company has been funded with ourselves and an external investor, but we return on the money except my own money. But they kept the shares. So to do that. So basically, I'm funding the company based on the beliefs that we try to solve the biggest problem in the world, it's clean energy. If you look at solar panels, batteries, saving low-E glasses, all thin films substrate. So one of the technologies, how to push that into the limit, like 100% for everything. So this is a product we sold. We still work with a lot of customers. You'll see. Basically, we sell factories. We work with partners to solve their problem. We work with other partners and to build those factories. So right now we also work with semiconductor. As the feature gets smaller, it's very hard to get the material into the bottom of vias. So we're working with them. We have the best plasma. It can run very low pressure, directional, things like this. The biggest problem for the semiconductor, how to get small features manufactured. For example, I have a patent on the EUV, the bottleneck right now. They have a very slow throughput, short lifetime because the light source get basically clogged. It's a deposition device. We even have a fusion. We've been working on this for 30 years. Basically, we address 3 problems. This is actually, we don't have a customer for this. It's very hard to find, but we have a solution to address all 3 issues. Power input, power loss, and the radiation loss. So we have a list. That's just partial list. This is the more full list of what we have. But what we want to do, why we're here, is that we are already working with some of the world's largest semiconductor equipment company, thin film solar company, glass company. Turns out that low-E glass is very good, but they want to do that on the car roofs, like a Tesla roof. It's curved, very hard. We have solution for that. Hard disk company plus a few battery companies. For example, how to do silicon anode in one step, just a very high density and a low cost. So what we're really looking for with the corporate VC is that first you can become a customer. Second, you can introduce us to your customer or partner so that we can solve their problem. We pay commission for that. If we, you can partner with us to deliver product, especially your equipment company or semiconductor. We want to have a technology solution, and we can work together. You actually make money. You can become an investor in us or our customers. We work with a lot of startups. Sometimes need funding. We kind of know which one works, which one doesn't. Proven solution. Even if you don't want to do any of this, if you share the problem with us, we might have a solution for you. Because we have a very vast, a basket of knowledge and experience. So it's free, and unless you use it. Even that, we are very flexible. So we're local in Fremont, been in business 17 years. So any questions? So I think that's it. Yeah.
Great. It's first time. So, I think with a little bit tweak, this can be made very powerful. Yeah. Can you just tell us how much you need to produce, put some numbers?
Oh, you see, we are very, strictly speaking, we don't need funding, but with funding, we get larger. But the key is this, most what we present is actually bring you money. Let's say you have a lot of connections. We get a customer, we pay you commission. They solve their problem. If we take investment, sometimes just a reward for our customer. Most of our investment come from customers. As we deliver product, we return the money to them, but they still keep the shares, some of the shares. So it's, you can talk to me, we are local. It's really to benefit the people who can bring the business to us, bring the invest to us. So there's no numbers. We can talk numbers detail. The business model.
And what's the revenue now?
We have, in the past, it's getting started. We have like about 10 million revenues in the last, since inception. But that's because most time we're spending money to spend time to develop technology. Going forward, we're working with the largest company. Those are hundreds of $1 million factories. For the year, semi-fab is a $10 billion fab. But we only take a small cut because we work with our partner company, equipment companies. They make a majority of money. We take a small cut.
Okay, just let's try to talk soon. I'm around, free from 2 o'clock. Okay. If you send me a Zoom, we can get more.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you.
We love some outliers also who are not only looking for funding. I think it's great, and especially locals. So can you stop sharing your screen?
Okay, how do I do that? Can somebody? I never found out how. Oh, here. Sorry. I'm not. Stop here.
Yeah. Okay. The next company is SST Wireless. Even though there was last minute change in order, when we always try to accommodate people, and then we make mistakes when we do that. So SST Wireless, Christopher Chong, floor is yours. This is a company.
Thanks, Casey.
One of our regulars, and we follow the progress always very, and some of our investors have loved them. They have dealt with them before. So Christopher, looking forward to it.
Thanks, Casey. We've been making lots of progress as the world is shifting from a pandemic to, I guess, whatever it is today. So SST Wireless, we're an industrial IoT company focused on wireless industrial sensors. We're solving challenges for companies both large and very small. And so what we're developing is technologies that bridges gaps for different people. And that's why we call ourselves the Industrial IoT for Everyone company. So we started our life. Well, let me jump to this because as Casey said, where are you with your raise? We're doing a 1.75 million raise, and we have about $295,000 left. There's a SVC that has been launched, by a South Ocean Venture. So that's available for investors who are looking for smaller amounts. Momenta is a lead. Keiretsu Capital, Tech Coast Angels+Harvard Ventures are all in this round. So we're looking forward to finishing this soon. So back to the main event. So we started off our life solving specific use cases where wireless that sensors that are industrial can solve. But we saw a bigger challenge, which is that for a lot of small companies who are industrial, the adoption level is pathetic. It's less than 10%. And in developing countries, even less than that. So the question is, why do small companies not able to adopt technologies that could help them the most, especially when it's becoming more and more available? It sounds like everyone's doing it, but the reality is not. 3 barriers. 1, complexity. Industrial IoT is dominated by big players like Rockwell, Siemens, ABB, where it's a complex ecosystem where everybody has to make some sort of money, and the technology hasn't significantly changed since the 80s and 90s. Second part is cost. A lot of it is CapEx, and for small companies, that's very challenging. And even if they do proceed, understanding what to do with the data and developing large data that they need to do the analytics is almost impossible. So what we did is call something called Industriality for Everyone. For example, this is our vibration and temperature sensor on municipal water pumps. Simple, within minutes, they're seeing data. They can actually start using that data. We changed the model from a CapEx to an OpEx, whether it's the SaaS monitoring that we provide, or even the sensors themselves can become a monthly fee. So sensors as a service, and then we help them visualize and transform that data into something that is meaningful to them. So you've all kind of seen these dashboards, but we're taking it one step further, which is how do you create big data or data with trainable events that a company can actually use, especially if they're small and they don't have the kind of data sources you do. Well, you use aggregation. You work with the customer to develop the data that you need, and then we aggregate that amongst our customers so they can all benefit and accelerate towards analytics much quicker. The market is massive, it's continuing to grow. There's a lot of use cases where technologies come into play, but I thought I'd just kind of go through a couple quickly for you so you know what we do. So for example, this is the Department of Transportation for Detroit. We delivered 28 buses with New Flyer, the largest manufacturer, to monitor the tire temperature and pressure because it contributes to a significant amount of safety, reduction in cost, and also reduction in greenhouse gases. We are the only approved vendor for the largest bus manufacturer in North America that makes about 65% of all buses. Here's another industrial where they use water and oil mixture to cool down equipment, and using our sensors, this company, it's a forestry company, was able to reduce that by 66%. Not only is there cost savings, but there was a positive environmental impact to the communities where these type of mills operate. So there's less contaminated water going into the ecosystem, and I'm really happy about that. Here's another one. It's a simple proposition: keep things from blowing up by being able to see what's happening inside a closed rotating drum with sawdust and all kinds of stuff. So you can see the thing here. I know Erik was talking about containers and all the port operations. Here's something we're doing with ports. This is the 3rd largest port in the US with a huge backlog. And we're helping to monitor the cranes that are required to move the containers from the boat onto the truck so they can be offloaded and onboarded. And so this is how we're monitoring it in real time and giving them an idea of what's going on with these RTG cranes. There's 110 of them at this particular port facilities. And my favorite, 10,000 municipalities in US and Canada that are underfunded, understaffed, and they're facing a huge problem as the workers start aging out. And we're working with them with a specific focus to accelerate their time to analytics so they can actually start becoming more predictive, not just preventative in terms of their maintenance strategies. You can't go from zero to hero overnight. Industrial players are much slower to adopt. So what we decided to do in the early days is OEM our technologies, including either by production or licensing, to some well-known companies that gives us the scale to manufacture. We then take to the next level, which is work with enterprise customers, where we integrate our technologies to different systems so we learned more. And more importantly, it gives us credibility in terms of customers that we use. You may not have heard of SST Wireless, but you probably heard of Disney as an example. And now we're going after the small, medium-sized companies, which make up 98% of the industrial market, and giving them solutions that they could implement themselves, plug and play, but it's industrial, and something that they can get their data visualization almost right away. We have a small team. Now we're going to add on to the sales and marketing side as we emerge from COVID restrictions. Overall, with our board and ourselves, we're responsible for many different exits. And I think you'll see that our backgrounds support what we are able to do here. Revenues are starting to kick up again, which is nice to see. So we're looking forward to this change as we move on and accelerate. Most likely we'll be acquired by one of the larger legacy industrial companies out there. Once again, what we have is a full complement of products that can allow us to go into a company, upsell, cross-sell. We have reference customers that people can see, use cases that are coming up. We have a robust platform for monitoring all this data, and we have some really interesting projects coming up. I think that's going to put us in the limelight. There's also some good media coverage about our company, and I'd be more than happy to share this deck with you so you can look a bit more into it. And once again, as a company, we manufacture, produce, engineer all this ourselves. So we are the IP holders, 2 patents, 6 more in the works. And once again, to summarize, $295,000 left on a $1.75 million US round. And that is our presentation. And thank you for your time. And any questions?
Great. Yeah, great to see the update, Christopher. Any question? Otherwise, I'll ask a question. You know, the revenues, it's just seemed you are spreading yourself. I mean, you're going to raise this funding. You know, you have strong momentum. Love it that you have Keiretsu Capital and Tech Coast Angels. They are bellwethers in the West Coast, you know, and it just seems that you are, if you just focus more on signing a few more enterprise customers, evaluation could be higher instead of just, you know, too much. But whatever it is, we are there to support you. And, you know, let's talk sometime. We never like talked offline. I just want to kind of learn more. And
absolutely.
Just
yeah, I mean, we can build a company just based on the enterprise market. But from a data play, it's the small, medium-sized companies that are going to create the data value that we have. Our goal is to be the largest repository of machine condition data with trainable events. And that's going to happen on the small, medium-sized category, not on the enterprise side. It just doesn't align well in that aspect. But thank you once again for the opportunity. I'll put my contact details in chat.
That's great. Yeah, that's the only thing I can see. Just ask people, because your valuation could really go up if it's enterprise, you have large brand names, which you already have. So just, it could be the second step, you know, the data play. This step is more enterprise customers you have, the more value is up, the more money you can raise, then you can acquire SMBs, you know, through discounts and all, underselling others. Anyway, great job. Congrats. Now we have come to the last, thank you, Christopher, last 2 companies. Our penultimate company is 24i7 Solar. Person presenting is Bruce Anderson. Once again, first time, really excited to see another company changing the world. And without much ado, hand over the floor to Bruce.
Okay. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. A little different subject area. My name is Bruce Anderson, founder and CEO of 24/7 Solar. The world is headed toward disaster as far as I'm concerned with climate change. And yet hardly any solutions have emerged yet for the industrial and commercial market. We have one that we think will make a huge difference in decarbonizing the industry. Basically, we are selling our solutions to the C&I industry. We're an MIT spinoff. We have a global team of partners and suppliers and more than 30 patents. We apply existing, proven industrial grade products to our solution. And we have a huge TAM in long duration energy storage. The pipeline of sales and of actual sales and potential sales is quite substantial, and yet we've just started. Our commercial demonstrator will be completed by the end of the year. And we have very clear vision for our future. We know fossil plants are being phased out because of all the wind and PV is so inexpensive. And that drives the need for long duration energy storage. And there are a lot of solutions emerging, but none of them address the C&I market. Ours is tailor-made. On the left are the C&I needs, and we hit the button on almost every single one of those needs. And there aren't any other solutions. This is a flexible, resilient, and carbon reducing solution. And basically what we're selling to the owners of a C&I facility is peace of mind. I imagine what it must be like to be an owner of a facility in Houston, where you've gone a couple of years, where for an entire week, you have no electricity or heat. Think about that. What we do is we produce power whenever called upon. We're also capable of producing heat whenever called upon. The way we do it is we store 9 hours of heat drawn from the grid via electricity, and then we convert that heat to electricity whenever needed. But in addition, our device can continue operating at full power, even when fully discharged. And we can even burn green hydrogen as a pathway to zero carbon. Here's the big deal. This is the only turbine ever that generates power without combustion using ambient, not pressurized, ambient pressure hot air. It's a 200 kilowatt machine. 10,000 have been made by Capstone. We modified it. It's our IP. They make them under license from us. And so what it does is draws even industrial waste heat and turns it into electricity. Here's an example of an application. This one is for off-grid mines. Here we install our system we call Heat Store, along with PV and or wind. And you can see that the annual cost of ownership is less than half for just diesel gensets. And the reason is that our system replaces diesel gensets, in addition to saving up to 90% of the fuel costs. We're making a rapid transition. We just completed the commercial development of our products. We are deploying them at full scale for the first time this year in Arizona at our test site. And we already have $1.2 million in orders that we will begin deploying later this year. The battery itself is being deployed in Australia for the first time with a nice pipeline behind it. And coincidentally, we're selling our turbines separately, and our first customer is in Australia. But this ability to operate 24 hours a day, even when fully discharged, gives us some incredible business opportunities. We can convert PV farms or wind farms to 24/7 operation. For weak substations, we can provide storage when there's too much power and spinning reserves when there's not enough. We can provide microgrids with unlimited baseload power, whether they're connected to the grid or not. And finally, they enable our exciting product that we call 24/7 solar plant, using the sun to turn our storage system into heat, which then drives turbines. And it can do this 24 hours a day. When there's not enough heat, again, we can burn fuel, including green hydrogen. We have a marketing and sales team that's been really active for the last 2 years. We have partners like Capstone who not only make these turbines, but they sell them to 70 dealers in 83 countries. We have a variety of go-to-market models, direct sales being the most obvious, but more likely we're to finance them ourselves with project financiers forming SPVs to do so. And we're selling licensing and commercialization rights in some sectors and some geographies. Plus, we have sales reps all over the world who are operating only on a success fee basis. We're a spin-off from MIT. I founded this with Professor David Gordon Wilson, and we've done everything. We've invented it, we patented it, developed, and now we're commercializing. So we're right on the cusp of breaking out. We've got a strong team that's been working together for several years. 3 of us went to MIT, and our business development director is based in Dubai. On our board of directors, we count a Nobel laureate, former senior VP of Bechtel, and former CEO of AES Solar. We've also been blessed with just terrific global technical partners from all over the world. We're raising our $10 million Series A preferred. We've got about half of it raised, and we think this is pretty attractive pricing compared with our competitor transactions. For example, our pre-money is $40 million, but Energy Vault and ESS Battery, which are about the same stage as we are, have been valued at about $1 billion. As I said, complete patent protection. Our funding, we've raised a lot of money. $6 million from the Department of Energy and $9.5 million from individuals and their trusts. Our key shareholders include Safar Partners, who's part of our Series A, myself, of course, a trust, and MIT is a part owner. So our pro forma capital structure is pretty simple. The Series A preferred gets 20%. And the use of proceeds is pretty obvious. We're completing our first commercial scale demonstrations. We're deploying our first commercial customers. We have 12 months of operations before a Series B next year, and $2 million is going into engineering. So there's actually so much more to the story. And I'll stop here and take questions.
Great. We have gone well over time, but I was like learning a lot, and I love such ambitions on a global scale. So, by the way, send Goban Ventures. I'm connected to someone. I'm sure you're connected, but if you need an intro, I'm more than happy to give an intro. I think they're in Switzerland or France. I just don't remember. But we are going to privately stay connected, and we will see how we can map. I mean, Andrew is MIT, so I'll also talk to him privately if there is some links one can, dots we can connect. But Bruce, really a pleasure to seeing first time presentation.
Thank you very much.
We are going to go in for the last company, which is Just Light, and person presenting is Peter Forra. And Peter is I was very impressed that he started right away with CVC investment, over $1 million from Japanese global Asahi Corporation. So that's very rare, but that's where market is heading to. So Peter, hope you have logged in now. We changed the order because of you.
Yes, thank you.
So
I appreciate it,
yours, brother.
Yes, I'm up at Northern Michigan now for a weekend, so that's my background. That's why I was delayed. Thank you everyone for making availability. My name is Peter Forhan. I'm the founder and CEO of Just Light. We're on a mission to revolutionize healthcare through universal access to photobiomodulation with a direct Series A objective to get FDA approval for Alzheimer's disease. And as Casey mentioned, we've raised about $2.7 million to date, half of that coming from Asahi Kasei, a Japanese conglomerate based in Tokyo. So photobiomodulation is a term that you probably haven't heard a lot of yet, but you will a lot in 2022. This is the use of red and near infrared light to directly heal, enhance, and impact our cells. And our team learned about 450 days ago that photobiomodulation has already been clinically evaluated as a safe and effective treatment for Alzheimer's disease, yet no one was taking the next step of scaling that technology and making it universally accessible. What we found in our review is best summed up by this graphic that we created, which is what drugs are attempting to do in failing is to slow the decline of dementia, often with extreme side effects. And what photobiomodulation has already been shown to do, outside of even in the context of our company, is reversing brain decline, improving memory, improving cognitive scores, reducing fall risk, improving mood, reducing amyloid plaque, and so much more. So we're taking this technology and explaining it in very simple ways to make it accessible. So how this is actually happening is about 12 major mechanisms. The three most important ones I'll highlight here. So light directly boosts the circulation of our body, specifically the microcirculatory blood flow. And this is very important in increasing cerebral blood flow to the brain in Alzheimer's patients. Light also both directly and indirectly reduces inflammation of the body, and then the associated pain that comes with that inflammation. The coolest mechanism by far is that light directly increases the energy output of the cell by stimulating the mitochondria and directly increasing the efficiency of the mitochondria and the electronic potential of the membrane of the mitochondria, increasing ATP output by incredible factors, up even to 3x output. So we're taking this science, distilling it down, and using it to earn FDA approval for Alzheimer's disease, a thing I consider overdue for photobiomodulation, but how lucky we are that we get to be the ones. We're doing that with our medical device, Sunflower RX. We're making photobiomodulation understood, accessible, and enjoyable. Understood is kind of a weird word. We say that because there's a biphasic dose response nature to light. If you do too little or too much, you'll have no effects. What you need to do is the optimal dose every time. And this is the main reason why you've never heard of the term. It's very difficult to get an optimal dose in an at-home setting or in a nursing home setting. And the way that we do that is we deliver data-driven precision doses where we can look at a clinical that's already been completed, type it into our back end of our software, connect to Sunflower via our app on iOS store and Android store, click begin, and then deliver a very specific precision dose of light to best replicate a clinical. So through that, we're making it accessible with this flexible stem for positioning that the nurse can do. And then of course, these automated controls. And we're also making this process enjoyable. We've got like a friendly, familiar design in Sunflower in the name. And this feeling of energy that I'm receiving right now is similar to that of the sunshine. And that warm energy, we have found patients saying it's the happiest part of their day because they like that feeling. I'm now very proud to say we have quantified memory recovery from a formal pilot study of a nursing home in Michigan, showing cognitive scores improving as a result of using Sunflower in just 6 weeks. This is a safe, gentle, non-invasive form of therapy that doesn't have negative side effects. And we only use red and near infrared light within specific doses that are already recognized by the FDA as being safe. We have a very definitive pathway through FDA approval as mapped by our clinical research organization partner, Amarex. And we're now on a 14 to 31 month pathway. And we have our FDA pre-submission meeting now set with the FDA for June 13th, 2022. And we're doing all of this with software precision so we can both control the outputs and the wavelengths. This is a 6-minute pitch, so I'll kind of skip through some of the imagery. Our case study is awesome, but I'll save that for the follow-up. You can see the incredible improvement in just 36 days with Sunflower as an intervention in one of these patients as an example. The left-hand side's severe dementia on November 11th. The right-hand side is the same individual 36 days later. So dementia is the most expensive disease in the United States. Even just Alzheimer's, a subsection of dementia, is $355 billion a year. Pharmaceuticals are failing, unfortunately, and pharmaceuticals aren't taking into account the energetic and electrical requirements of the brain that photobiomodulation does, which is why photobiomodulation has this reversal effect, not just a slowing effect. FDA has 3 major buckets criteria: safety, efficacy, unmet need. Safety, check. We get to skip phase 1 of clinicals because FDA already recognizes Sunflower as safe. Efficacy is very high. And I encourage everyone listening to this call to find this systematic review by Dr. Hamlin called Photobiomodulation for Alzheimer's, Has the Light Dawned, and read it and get as excited as I am. An unmet need, of course, is off the charts. It's one of the major reasons that Aduhelm got the approval last year. Market opportunity is massive. We are using photobiomodulation to disrupt the Alzheimer's market. And now, because we have a 450-day head start, we've been able to design key intellectual property to optimize this process. Landed cost, MSRP, we're going for a goal of $0 out of pocket for Medicare reimbursement. Our licensing recurring software fee, and our data is a big thing. For this call, I won't get into the data. but big market opportunity here from a sale perspective. Competitors, you're probably familiar with the name Biogen and Aduhelm. They made a big splash last summer. And last week, Medicare put their foot down, so we're not reimbursing you. And even with all this controversy surrounding Aduhelm's approval, they still had a $20 billion public market bump after running FDA approval. Cassava Sciences is forward-leaning therapeutic as an example. Most direct to us is Vialite, this helmet you see on the right. Vialite has great clinical results, but it's an outdated product, outdated physical UI, outdated software, and especially in the case of a dementia patient with a 2-minute memory, it's tough to have compliance with devices that are painful to your head and are scary to wear, like intranasal probes. So we built Sunflower to be a happy process that the patient wants to do. And we've been very happy to see that that's what the results are in our nursing homes. So our company is a public benefit corporation pursuing FDA approval for Alzheimer's treatment. I'm Peter Forehand, founder and CEO. We've got an awesome management team, some awesome partners. As Casey mentioned, our primary investment partner is Asahi Kasei. We got some great design and manufacturing. Over the 5 rounds of fundraising, we're now in our 6th round of fundraising, which is our Series A. We've raised 2.65. We're raising 25 with these uses of funds. Rather than dive into these, I'll just leave the time for questions because I love live Q&A. So hit me.
Great. So we have room for one question. Is there any question from our judges? Can you, Peter, just talk a little bit about your existing investors? What are their profile?
Absolutely. So our largest investor to date is Asahi Kasei. They actually invested in us for a technology that led to Sunflower, and that was the use of red and near-infrared light to mitigate the damaging effects of sunburn or UVC germicidal light, which is what the technology is based on. And so Sunflower emerged from that investment after seeing how effective it was at reducing and reversing sunburn, then led us down to learning about photobiomodulation, and then moving from being a skin-safe germicidal light hand cleaning device to developing a new generation of photobiomodulation. We also have a number of angel groups and from the Midwest, so Northern Michigan Angels, one of the venture arms out of Michigan State University, and a lot of other sort of Midwest syndicates. So this is our first time in our Series A going to the coasts and raising money from the coasts. So to date, it's all been from Japan or Michigan specifically.
That's great. I particularly love origin stories, and that's part of today's learning, which is CVC related discourses. You know, that's also very, very good learning from all of us, because that's the future. And recently we are seeing trends, and you are representing future in several ways. You know, like in our life science events, suddenly we see 3 light companies, you know,
Exactly.
with such serious backgrounds and funding and everything. So in the past, no one has ever seen 3 light companies in one event, life sciences event. So these are changes. Like today we saw batteries, how bringing back the battery supply chain to US, all these things. So we want to be where, like CNN says, breaking news, we want to be breaking, Pitch Global wants to be breaking education for innovation and funding. So on that note, we have reached the end just in time. So I'm going to wrap this up, and then
Jim, if you want to send me a note with your question, I'm happy to take it.
Yeah, my question is, I may have missed it, but you know, projected income statement and ultimate capital needed. Some of these FDA things take a lot of capital.
So quick answer is the FDA process itself is $2.5 million as budgeted by Amarex, or as outlined by Amarex, but our raise itself is $25 million. So most of it is the operational foundation, and only about 1/10 of it is the actual FDA process itself. And that number is incredibly low because we don't have to do the phase 1 portion and the typical things that would come with a therapeutic.
Does 25 get you to profitability, cash flow?
Yeah. This is post FDA approval profitability. Yep.
Okay.
So we just have 1 minute, but what I like here is, just in case FDA gets delayed or doesn't go through, you can still make a lot of money with what you have. So that's, maybe highlight that as well, because some other companies, money goes, then they are stuck. But you know, you're gonna win no matter what. So that is a very another very selling point. On that note, I am declaring this event closed. I can hand it over to Sharon, and she can also, but we just have 1 minute. So Sharon, I want to specifically thank your new team, and they were really great in setting the rules and following through. So Sharon, you want to do the honor? since you opened the event.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Very high caliber group of presenters today. And it started with the thought leadership from our CVCs. Very thankful for to be your co-host today. Wishing everyone the best. Have a wonderful weekend. And when is our next event?
It's 17th June.
Okay.
And
all right.
And I have to say one last thing is we have every startup has been assigned to per judge. We are going to make the email intro very soon. I'm getting on a call with Peter now. We are going to catch up, and then after that, within half an hour, everyone will get connected to one. Sometimes people are busy. We are going to reconnect just in case that person can't take it. So thank you everybody for creating such a great collective shared experience where we all learn and grew in the process. So much respect.
Thank you, Casey. Thank you, team. This is wonderful.
Bye-bye.